So in the first 6 months of 2025, 77,999 tech workers packed up their desks, handed in their badges, and just walked out the door.
Yeah.
But here's the really chilling part about that. They weren't replaced by, cheaper labor in another country. And
Yeah.
they weren't replaced by a new graduating class of junior developers either. They were replaced by code.
Which is just wild when you really stop to think about it.
Exactly. Welcome back to Controlled Dissent. We have an incredibly urgent, just a massive deep dive into the sources for you today.
We really do.
And we are starting right in the deep end here because, we keep hearing this exact same utopian promise from literally every corner of the tech world right now.
Yeah, it's that persistent, almost aggressively cheerful narrative of the augmented worker.
Right, the ultimate co-pilot.
Exactly. The idea that artificial intelligence is simply an efficiency engine, meant to empower us.
Empower us.
Right.
Huh.
But here is the paradox. And this is the core mystery we are unpacking for you today. If one employee can now use an AI agent to do the work of 3 people.
Which they can?
Right, which they totally can. Why is the default corporate response to fire 2 people instead of just giving everyone, a 3-day work week and keeping the same head count?
That is the big question.
If we've achieved this miraculous technological leverage, why isn't the surplus trickling down into worker leisure?
Well, because you have just hit on the defining economic battleground of 2026.
Okay, unpack that a little.
Mathematically, if productivity doubles or even triples across an entire enterprise, that massive surplus of value has to go somewhere.
Right. It doesn't just vanish.
Exactly. So the tension we are seeing, the friction that is literally tearing apart labor markets right now, is about whether that surplus goes toward higher wages and better lives for the working class.
Right.
Or strictly upward to shareholders in the form of ruthless labor cost saving. And that is our exact mission today. We are sitting in front a towering stack of sources. We have freshly released 2026 labor data from McKinsey and BCG. We have the Tenet report detailing massive workforce exposure.
Which is terrifying, by the way.
Oh, completely terrifying. We have proprietary risk scoring from Cariri. And we are looking really closely at the incredibly fierce public debates happening right now between Nobel Prize-winning labor economists and Silicon Valley CEOs.
The gloves are totally off there.
Oh, yeah. And we've also got some incredibly revealing ground-level threads from Reddit where actual workers are, navigating this bizarre reality in real time.
Yeah, our goal here is to really cut through the noise and the panic. Because there is an immense amount of fear-mongering right now.
So much.
But when you actually look at the hard empirical data for 2026, a very clear, very specific picture emerges of what is actually happening to the global workforce.
So it's not just doom and gloom.
Well, it is not necessarily the dystopian job apocalypse some are predicting, but it is a radical, permanent restructuring of human capital.
And this matters to you, the listener, directly. Think about your own Tuesday morning. How much of your 9 to 5 is spent just moving data from one piece of software to another so your boss can read it?
Probably a lot.
Probably most of it. So whether you are prepping for a boardroom meeting or, whether you are trying to help your kid choose a college major or you are just desperately trying to protect your own paycheck, this is about understanding the layout of the board before the rules completely change.
Right. You need to know where the safe zones are.
Exactly.
And those safe zones are shifting more rapidly than at any point in modern history. The basic assumptions that the middle class relied on for the last 40 years, they're entirely obsolete now.
Which brings me to a little tease for you. Wait until you hear the specific career that scored a 97 out of 100 for being virtually AI-proof.
Oh, that one surprised me.
I promise you it is absolutely not what the tech billionaires in Silicon Valley think it is.
Not at all.
But before we get to the safe havens, we really have to walk right into the center of the storm. Let's look at the layoff wave and what economists are terrifyingly calling the big squeeze of 2026.
Right. Let's start by grounding this in the hard numbers from the Tenet report because they really frame the sheer scale of this shift.
Okay, lay it on us.
They estimate that by 2030, 92 million jobs globally could be replaced or fundamentally displaced due to AI and related automated labor shifts.
92 million.
Yeah.
We throw millions around like it's nothing, but pause and think about that. That is roughly the entire population of Germany just waking up to find their daily utility to the economy has evaporated.
Right. It is about 8% of today's total global workforce. And we are already seeing the sharp leading edge of this blade.
You mean the stats from the top of the show?
Exactly. In just the first half of 2025 alone, 77,999 tech jobs were eliminated specifically due to AI adoption. This is not some fuzzy future projection, you know? This is hundreds of human beings losing their livelihoods every single day.
And what's wild to me is that companies aren't even hiding it anymore.
No, they're boasting about it.
Right. Like, it used to be whispered about in private earnings calls. But the tech.co data we are pulling from is just incredibly blunt. Microsoft's CEO, Satya Nadella, openly admitted that around 30% of the company's code is now generated by AI.
30%? That's massive.
It's insane. But the one that really sent a shiver down my spine was Klarna.
Oh yeah, the payment processor. Their restructuring was incredibly aggressive.
Aggressive is an understatement. Klarna openly stated they fired 700 customer service agents and replace them with a single AI chatbot that handles their exact workload.
A single chatbot.
Yes, and I don't want to just skim past this because well-informed listeners need to understand the mechanics of this. We aren't talking about a stupid chatbot from 2018 that just links you to an FAQ page when you ask for a refund.
Oh no, the architecture's entirely different now.
Right. The new Klarna AI is deeply integrated via API into their actual database. So when a customer says, I want a refund, the AI cross-references the customer's purchase history, checks the vendor's return policy via another API call, authenticates the user's identity, initiates the bank transfer through the payment gateway, and sends the confirmation email.
Oh, economously.
Yes, it does all of that in 1.5 seconds.
Wow.
A human doing that same workflow has to open Zendesk, open Stripe, log into the internal CRM, verify the policy, and manually type an email. That takes, what, 7 minutes?
At least.
That is why 700 people are gone. The AI has read and write access to the core infrastructure.
And the thing is, Klarna is just the canary in the coal mine here.
Right. Who else is doing this?
You have Salesforce, Atlassian, Meta, and IBM actively restructuring right now. IBM's CEO explicitly stated they plan to replace nearly 30% of their back-office clerical roles with AI over the next few years.
30% of back office. How many people is that?
That is nearly 8,000 jobs entirely wiped off the organizational chart. But what's fascinating here is the precise mechanism of how this happens across a wider corporation. Because it's rarely a clean one-to-one replacement where, like, an android literally sits down at a human's desk.
Right. It's not the Terminator typing on a keyboard.
Exactly. The Gloat report and a lot of the Reddit discussions we analyzed use a very specific economic term for this phenomenon. They call it compression.
Compression. Yeah, when I read the Gloat report's use of that word, I immediately thought about a digital zip file.
Oh, that's a great way to think about it.
Right. Like you take a massive folder containing gigs of data and you squish it down into a tiny footprint without losing the core information. It feels like corporations are literally zipping their departments.
That is a phenomenal analogy because compression means AI eliminates the low-value, repetitive, routine friction within a department.
Okay, give me an example.
So let's look at a marketing agency. You have a team of 5 people. They do a mix of complex strategic problem solving, like conceptualizing a brand identity, and routine data entry like formatting spreadsheets for A/B ad testing.
Which nobody likes doing anyway.
Right. So the AI takes over all the formatting, the basic copywriting, and the data aggregation. Suddenly, you do not have enough work to justify 5 salaries.
Ouch.
So you compress that team into a team of 2. Those 2 survivors handle all the high-value, complex strategy, and they just manage the AI that does the grunt work of the other 3.
Wow. Let me create a hypothetical scenario to make this painfully concrete, because I want you, listening right now, to visualize this in your own office.
Let's hear it.
Imagine an entry-level logistics coordinator at a mid-sized shipping firm. A year ago, a truck breaks down in Ohio.
Right.
The coordinator spends 45 minutes frantically calling towing companies, manually rerouting the other trucks on a whiteboard, emailing the client a delay notice, and updating the supply chain software.
Total mess of a morning.
Right. But today, the truck's telemetry system detects the breakdown. The AI instantly pings the nearest contracted tow truck, autonomously calculates the most fuel-efficient reroute for the rest of the fleet, and drafts a highly empathetic apology email to the client. All the human coordinator does is glance at the screen and click approve.
Right. So the human is still in the loop. The human is still essential for the final liability check.
But the task that used to take 45 minutes now takes 12 seconds?
Yeah.
So if you run a logistics floor with 100 coordinators and their operational efficiency just skyrocketed by 500%, the shipping company does not keep 100 people on the payroll and let them play ping pong in the break room.
Definitely not.
They fire 80 people, they compress the floor.
And that is the exact dynamic the Reddit community in the AI SEO Insider threads is pointing out. We read through hundreds of comments from middle managers.
What were they saying?
One user brilliantly noted that AI isn't replacing the worker entirely. It is making the remaining workers so hyper-productive that their peers become redundant.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you are essentially forced to automate your coworkers out of a job just to keep your own.
That is incredibly bleak. Now, I need to jump in and play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Because there is a very healthy, I'd say very cynical amount of skepticism out there, I have to ask. Are these massive enterprise companies really firing people because AI is just so magical and flawlessly capable? Or is AI just an incredibly convenient PR excuse? Because we know for a fact these massive tech firms drastically overhired during the zero interest rate pandemic expansion.
They absolutely do.
Right, they built up massive bloat. So is AI restructuring just a sexy, forward-looking way to appease Wall Street investors while doing traditional, brutal cost-cutting?
That is a crucial pushback. You're absolutely right to challenge the corporate narrative here. And honestly, labor economists agree with you to a large extent.
Really?
Oh, yeah. AI is frequently used as a scapegoat to mask strategic blunders by the C-suite. The reality is usually a blend of both forces. Yes, companies are aggressively cutting the fat from the pandemic era.
But
Here is where the AI factor becomes undeniable.
yeah.
When they cut, they are actively choosing not to backfill those positions.
Ah, so it's the invisible layoffs, the silent hiring freeze.
Precisely. Natural attrition isn't being replaced. If a junior data analyst leaves for grad school, their job posting is never listed.
So what happens to the work?
The workload is simply absorbed by an automated workflow managed by a senior analyst. So whether AI is a convenient excuse for a layoff today or the primary driver of a hiring freeze tomorrow, the net result for the working class is identical.
The job is gone and the door is locked behind it.
Exactly.
And it is hitting customer service, logistics, and basic coding incredibly hard. But honestly, it gets so much worse.
It really does.
Because the people most at risk aren't who you would traditionally expect. The safe path that society sold to us for decades is collapsing right in front of our eyes.
This brings us to a concept from the career report that absolutely floored me. They call it the trades office inversion.
The trades office inversion.
Right. And if we connect this to the macroeconomic picture, it represents a total, violently abrupt reversal of the socioeconomic playbook.
I mean, for 40 years, the explicit promise, the social contract we all signed was this. Go to college, take on the $60,000 in student debt, get a white-collar office job where you work in the air conditioning, and you will be definitively safer, more secure, and better compensated than a blue-collar worker who uses their physical body to make a living.
And AI has shredded that playbook entirely.
Literally set it on fire.
The data is unequivocal.
Yeah.
When you dive into the Goldman Sachs analysis on occupational exposure, they found that 37% to 46% of white-collar office tasks are highly automatable by current language models.
Almost half.
Yeah. But compare that to the skilled physical trades. Only 4% to 6% of tasks in the skilled trades are susceptible to automation.
Wow. That leads to a demographic shocker that I've frankly had to read 3 times to believe.
The bachelor's degree stat.
Yes. Think about this. The Tenet data shows that 27% of workers with a bachelor's degree face a high risk of automation exposure. Over a quarter of college grads. But if you look at workers without a high school diploma, only 3% face high exposure. The higher your formal education in the knowledge economy, the more squarely your forehead is in the crosshairs of a large language model.
Because we spent decades training people to act like biological computers.
Oof. That's a brutal way to put it.
But it's true. We taught them to process information, format text, and move data from column A to column B. Now, actual computers can do that instantly.
Right.
And this creates a severe gender disparity as well, which is vital to note because it reveals deep structural biases in our labor market.
Unpack that for us. How is the AI wave hitting demographics differently?
Well, according to the data, 79% of employed women in the U.S. work in jobs with high automation exposure.
79%.
Yes, compared to just 58% of men.
Why is the gap that huge?
This is not arbitrary. It is because women have been statistically overrepresented in administrative, human resources, bookkeeping, and clerical office support roles.
Ah, I see.
These are the exact informational choke points where AI data processing excels. Men, historically and structurally, are overrepresented in physical construction, infrastructure maintenance, and heavy logistics.
The physical world.
Exactly, the physical world, which AI cannot currently touch.
It's completely counterintuitive to how we were raised to view career risk.
Yeah.
You thought the guy digging the ditch was vulnerable and the person in the HR office was safe.
Right.
It is literally the exact opposite today. Let's pull the thread on some specific careers. Junior software developers. I have to admit, this one broke my brain a little.
A lot of people feel that way.
I thought coding was the ultimate bulletproof, safe job. The entire cultural mantra of the 2010s was learn to code.
Learn to code was brilliant advice in 2015, but in 2026 it requires a massive asterisk.
Yeah, it does.
AI tools like GitHub Copilot and Anthropic's Claude can write standard boilerplate syntax flawlessly in seconds.
Right, and it's important to understand how they do this. Copilot doesn't just act like a fancy autocorrect.
Not at all.
It reads the entire repository of your code base to understand the context. A junior dev used to spend 3 hours figuring out how to authenticate a user login and connect it to a database.
Lots of Googling and Stack Overflow.
Exactly. Now, a senior dev just writes a comment in plain English, authenticate user using OAuth2 and handle token refresh, hits the tab key, and Copilot instantly generates 40 lines of perfectly formatted code.
Yeah.
The junior dev's entire afternoon of work just evaporated.
Exactly. And the macro data reflects this perfectly. The Careery report notes that entry-level job postings for software developers plummeted by 53% in a single year.
53%. Half the entry-level jobs gone in a year.
Yeah. The demand for software hasn't vanished. In fact, it's actually growing, but the entry-level ramp has been destroyed. Companies want senior system architects who can design complex architectures and manage a swarm of AI coding agents. They have absolutely zero desire to pay a 23-year-old junior dev $90,000 a year to manually type out basic functions.
And it's not just coding either. It's clerical and creative work, too. Data entry clerks, bookkeepers, medical transcriptionists, even entry-level copywriters.
Well, the copywriting market got hit hard.
So hard. If you are writing standard SEO blog posts about, top 10 CRM tools for 2026 or drafting basic marketing emails, a generative AI can do that instantly and essentially for free. The marginal cost of competent B2B copy has dropped to zero.
But we need to be extremely careful here.
How so?
It is easy to outline this massive wave of disruption and leave the listener feeling paralyzed. Knowledge is most valuable when it is understood and applied.
Absolutely.
If you are sitting in one of these threatened fields right now, say you are a bookkeeper or a junior copywriter, we have to look at what the practical solutions are, because you are not helpless.
I completely agree. Let's talk solutions, because you don't have to just sit at your desk and wait for the calendar invite from HR.
Right.
If you are a junior dev, you have to aggressively upskill. You have to stop thinking of yourself as a syntax writer, like a bricklayer of code. You have to start thinking of yourself as a systems orchestrator. You have to learn how to prompt, evaluate, debug, and string together multiple AI agents to build entire applications.
And for roles like copywriters or accountants, the pivot is heavily toward entrepreneurship and higher-level strategy.
I like the sound of that.
The Careery report calls this framework becoming a 10x sole proprietor. The mindset shift is crucial. You do not compete with the AI. You leverage it to multiply your own human output.
Give me a concrete example of the 10x sole proprietor.
Like an independent bookkeeper. Historically, because of the sheer manual hours required to reconcile ledgers and track expenses, they might have only been able to handle, say, 10 small business clients a month.
Sure, they were capped by their own waking hours.
Exactly. Now, they deploy AI agents to ingest all the receipts, categorize the massive spreadsheets, and do the grueling data reconciliation in minutes.
Wow.
Because the AI handles the execution, that same single bookkeeper can now take on 50 clients.
50.
But here is the key. Their value proposition to the client completely shifts. They aren't getting paid to do the math anymore.
Right.
They're getting paid to look at the AI's output and provide strategic financial advice to the business owner. Should we expand? Should we cut marketing spend? They transition from being a human calculator to being a trusted advisor.
I absolutely love that. You elevate yourself up the value chain from pure execution to high-level strategy.
Precisely.
But, even with those solutions, the scale of this disruption is still terrifying for a lot of people. It just feels unprecedented.
It feels unprecedented. It is incredibly easy to look at this trades office inversion, look at the massive drop in entry-level white-collar hiring, and panic.
Yeah.
But before we assume the sky is permanently falling and human labor is entirely obsolete, we need to look backward.
Okay.
Because humanity has actually panicked exactly like this before.
Okay, let's step into the time machine. Let's talk about the Industrial Revolution. Specifically, I want to go back to 1764, the invention of the spinning jenny, and the mechanized power looms that followed.
It is the quintessential textbook example of technological disruption.
Right, and this disruption led directly to the Luddite Rebellion between 1811 and 1816. We use the term Luddite today as, an insult for someone who can't figure out their smartphone.
Right. Okay, Luddite.
Yeah. But the original Luddites were highly skilled textile weavers in England. They were the middle-class artisans of their day.
They had really good jobs.
They did. And they started physically smashing the automated looms in the factories.
Because they were terrified.
Exactly. They looked at these massive machines and thought, that's it. Human labor is finished. This machine weaves cloth at the speed of 50 men. Therefore, 49 of us are going to starve to death.
And if you place yourself in their shoes, their fear was entirely rational based on what they could observe in front of them. The machine was doing the work of 50 men.
It totally was.
What they were falling victim to, however, is a very specific cognitive trap that economists call the lump of labor fallacy.
Right. It feels like those weavers were assuming the economy is a fixed pie. If there's only one pie and a giant machine eats half of it, everyone else starves.
That is the exact definition of the lump of labor fallacy. It is the false assumption that there is a fixed, finite amount of work to be done in the world.
Right.
If there are only 100 shirts that society needs woven and a machine weaves 90 of them, humans only get to weave 10. But the economy is not a fixed pie. It is intensely dynamic.
Which brings us to the Jevons paradox. And listen to me, if there is one economic concept you need to understand to survive 2026, it is this.
Absolutely. William Stanley Jevons was an economist who observed coal usage in the 19th century. He noticed something totally counterintuitive. As steam engines became more efficient and used less coal per hour, the total consumption of coal actually skyrocketed.
Wait, why? If they use less coal, shouldn't overall consumption go down?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But because the extreme efficiency made steam power cheaper and more profitable, people built 1,000 more steam engines.
Ah, I see.
The paradox is that when technological progress makes a resource cheaper and more efficient, the demand for it doesn't stay flat. The demand increases exponentially.
We see this so clearly in the data regarding the Ford Model T. This is the perfect industrial analogy.
Let's hear it.
Before Henry Ford, cars were hand-built by artisans. They were luxury items for the ultra-rich. Then Ford introduces the mechanized assembly line. Suddenly, productivity triples. A worker who used to help build 2 cars a year is now churning out dozens. By the Luddite logic, Ford should have fired 80% of his auto workers, did he?
No, he hired thousands more.
Exactly. Because productivity tripled, the production cost plummeted, and the price of the car was cut in half. And because cars were suddenly affordable to the average middle-class family, consumer demand exploded. They needed more workers to keep up with the hyperscale demand.
And we actually have a modern digital equivalent of this right here in the BCG report we reviewed.
Oh yeah, this is fascinating.
The Luddite fear in 2023 was that ChatGPT would destroy coding jobs. But BCG highlights that software engineering headcount across major enterprises actually grew in the 2 years following the release of generative AI.
Wait, how is that possible if the AI is writing 30% of the code?
Because of the Jevons paradox. Organizations realized that with AI making code generation cheaper and faster, they could finally afford to build all the software features, internal tools, and apps they had previously backlogged because human engineering time was too expensive.
Oh, wow.
They didn't fire the engineers. They expanded their digital output.
Oh.
The demand for software in the modern economy is highly elastic. If you make it cheaper to build, companies will just demand 10 times more of it.
So the historical trend essentially says technology makes things cheaper. Cheaper things mean explosive demand, and explosive demand creates more jobs. So, happy ending. We can all go home.
Well, eventually. But this raises a critically important question about the timeline.
Yeah.
I need to inject a heavy dose of sobering reality here. because macroeconomics can be very cold comfort to a laid-off worker.
That's true.
Yes, history shows us that it works out in the long run. But the short term can be absolutely brutal.
You're talking about the big freeze.
Precisely. The big freeze, or Engels' pause, as economists call it. During the 1800s in the UK, as the Industrial Revolution roared to life, national productivity soared. Factory owners and industrialists amassed incomprehensible wealth.
Naturally.
But the real wages and the standard of living for the actual workers flatlined for 40 years.
40 years, that's a whole generation.
Yes. It took 4 decades of societal upheaval, labor organizing, and policy shifts for the wealth generated by the new technology to actually translate into better living standards for the working class. The transition phase is incredibly painful.
Okay, I have to push back on you here, on behalf of everyone listening.
Fair enough.
You are using the Model T and the steam engine as analogies, but honestly, that feels intellectually dishonest. A tractor replaces a horse's muscles, a steam engine replaces physical exertion, but AI is fundamentally different.
How so?
AI replaces the brain. It replaces cognitive function. If a machine can out-think me, out-strategize me, out-code me, and out-write me, the Jevons paradox won't save my job. The AI will just do all the new jobs created by the new demand, too. What is left for the human to do?
That is brilliant pushback. And let me tell you, that exact question is tearing Silicon Valley apart right now.
I bet it is.
The smartest minds in the world are having a very public, very nasty fight about whether human cognition is fundamentally different from human muscle when it comes to automation.
Let's get into this great debate. Because on one side, you have the tech CEOs sounding like literal doomsday prophets.
Very loud ones.
And on the other side, you have elite economists essentially calling them arrogant and delusional.
Let's start with the doomsday predictions because they are dominating the headlines. You have Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic.
Mimic the Claude AI, right?
Right, one of the most powerful models on Earth. And you also have Geoffrey Hinton, who is universally recognized as the godfather of AI.
Amodei actually went on national television and, with a straight face, predicted that 50% of all entry-level white-collar jobs, we're talking law, finance, consulting, tech, will be completely wiped out in 1 to 5 years.
Not reshaped. Wiped out.
Wiped out. He is openly predicting an employment crisis of a magnitude we haven't seen since the Great Depression.
And Hinton echoes this sentiment deeply. He argues exactly what you just argued.
Yeah.
Because AI can emulate intellectual labor, it completely breaks the historical pattern. A machine that can reason can learn to do any new job that is created. But then the economists strike back.
And they strike back hard. You have Yann LeCun, the former chief AI scientist at Meta, and Darren Acemoglu, the Nobel Prize-winning labor economist from MIT. And they are absolutely not having it.
Yann LeCun's quote on this is absolutely brutal, but it highlights the divide perfectly. He publicly stated that Dario Amodei knows as much about labor economics as the head of a Formula One racing team knows about thermodynamics.
I mean, somebody call a burn ward for that one.
It's scathing.
Really is.
But his underlying point is incredibly valid. Being a brilliant mathematician who knows how to design a neural network architecture does not mean you understand the incredibly complex, messy, macroeconomic realities of how global supply chains and human labor markets adapt to shocks over time.
And Acemoglu goes a step further. He actually calls the CEO panic-motivated reasoning.
Ah, yes. Let's dig into that.
Let's be real for a second. If you are running an AI startup and you need to raise $100 billion from venture capitalists, it massively benefits your valuation to convince the world that your product is so unfathomably powerful, it's going to replace human civilization.
It is a brilliant marketing strategy disguised as a warning.
It's the ultimate hype cycle.
It really is. But Acemoglu backs up his skepticism with deep economic theory. He argues that the doomers fundamentally misunderstand what a job is.
What does he mean by that?
A job is not a monolith. You don't just delete a job with an algorithm. A job is a complex bundle of dozens of different tasks.
Right, let's break that down.
If you are an accountant, your job involves data entry, yes.
Lots of it.
But it also involves calling a stressed-out client to calm them down about an audit, interpreting vague tax laws, noticing a subtle anomaly that requires human context to understand, and taking legal responsibility for a filing.
That makes sense.
An AI might be able to automate 3 or 4 out of those 20 tasks. That doesn't destroy the accountant's job. It reshapes it. It frees the accountant from the spreadsheet to focus on the client.
So who is right, the doomers or the economists? Because they can't both be right.
Well, we have the BCG and McKinsey reality check right here in the sources.
Okay, what do they say?
When they modeled out the entire U.S. workforce, looking at every single task within thousands of occupations, they found that 50% to 55% of jobs will be fundamentally reshaped.
Meaning the daily workflow will change drastically.
Yes, but only 10% to 15% are strictly vulnerable to outright elimination in the next few years.
Okay, so the takeaway is not that we won't have jobs. It is that the job you have today will feel completely different in 3 years. The tasks you currently spend 60% of your day doing right now might disappear entirely, replaced by completely new expectations.
Exactly.
Okay, if Asimoglu and the economists are right, and work is just changing, what exactly are the jobs of the future? Where is the growth?
Oh, wait until you hear who is on this next list, because this is where the panic starts to look like massive opportunity.
Okay, let's pivot away from the fear and look at the job creation boom. Because the data here is actually thrilling.
It really is.
The World Economic Forum projects that by 2030, AI could generate 170 million entirely new jobs globally.
170 million.
Even factoring in the massive displacement we discussed earlier, that is still a net positive gain of 78 million jobs worldwide.
What are these jobs?
We know the demand for specific newly created roles is just exploding. AI engineers are seeing a 140% spike in demand. AI content creators are up 130%. You have entirely new titles popping up on LinkedIn overnight, like prompt engineer, AI solutions architect, and algorithmic bias auditor growing at massive rates.
But what fascinates me is that the real opportunity isn't just in deep tech coding jobs.
No, and this is where we need to introduce the concept of AI fluency. McKinsey found that the demand for AI fluency in standard job postings has grown 7x in just 2 years. It's the fastest growing skill requirement across all industries.
How do they define AI fluency?
It does not mean you know how to code in Python. It means you have the ability to effectively use, prompt, and manage AI tools in your daily workflow. It's the transition from being a worker to being an orchestrator.
I love that framing. Think of it like the transition from playing an instrument in the orchestra to standing on the podium with the baton.
Exactly. You aren't physically blowing into the trumpet anymore. You're telling the brass section exactly when to swell. Let's do another scenario to anchor this.
Okay.
Imagine a mid-level HR manager.
The quintessential white-collar corporate role.
Right. Historically, this manager might spend 20 hours a week just sitting in front of a screen, sorting through hundreds of PDF resumes, trying to spot keywords, and then playing endless email tag to schedule first-round interviews.
It is robotic work done by a human.
Completely. Now, an AI agent does all of that instantly and flawlessly. Does the HR manager get fired? According to the reshaping model we just discussed, no.
They get those 20 hours of their life back.
Right.
But the vital question is, what do they do with that newly freed time?
They shift to the deeply human elements of the job that an algorithm cannot touch.
Like what?
They spend those 20 hours sitting down face-to-face with top talent to negotiate complex, highly personalized hybrid work perks so they don't jump ship to a competitor.
Oh, that's high value.
Very high value. They mediate a messy, emotionally charged conflict between two department heads who hate each other. They build actual corporate culture. The job didn't disappear. The robotic parts of the job disappeared, leaving the human parts behind.
And realizing that requires a massive shift in personal mindset.
It really does.
If you're listening to this right now and wondering how to prepare, the most practical solution is aggressively upskilling your AI fluency. You have to actively learn how to manage these tools in your current role. You make yourself indispensable by being the person who knows how to wring the absolute maximum productivity out of the expensive AI agents your company just bought.
Or if you have an entrepreneurial streak, you use it to build your own empire.
Oh, the side hustle potential.
Exactly. There is a huge opportunity right now for lucrative side income and freelance consulting. If you have deep industry knowledge, you can use AI to offer services that previously required a whole agency to execute.
Give me an example.
A single marketing strategist can use AI to scrape market research, generate 50 variations of ad copy, analyze the campaign data, and optimize the spend. You are doing the work of 5 people, but you are keeping 100% of the profits for yourself.
The economy of 2026 is going to heavily reward individuals who can act as a bridge, the human API between high-level strategic vision and machine execution.
The human API, I love that. So we talked a lot about the jobs in the crosshairs. We've talked about the jobs that are changing and the new ones being created. But there is a VIP list of careers that are practically bulletproof to AI. the ultimate safe havens. And it's time we talk about them.
This is where the career report is incredibly illuminating because it gives us a framework, not just a list.
Okay.
They developed a 100-point index to measure a job's AI resistance score, and it breaks down into 4 specific, fascinating dimensions.
Let's unpack these 4 dimensions because this is literally the cheat code for career security in 2026.
Yeah.
What makes a job AI-proof?
Dimension 1 is physical presence. Does the job require you to be in a specific physical location navigating a chaotic, unpredictable 3D environment?
Got it.
Dimension 2 is human relationship. Is the core value of the job built on trust, empathy, and deep emotional connection?
Okay, that's huge.
Dimension 3 is creative judgment. Does the role require genuinely novel, out-of-the-box problem-solving in messy, high-stakes, real-world scenarios?
Makes sense.
And Dimension 4 is ethical and legal accountability. Is a physical human being required by law or society to hold the liability if something goes catastrophically wrong?
So if your job scores high on those 4 metrics, you are inside the fortress.
The moat is deep, and the walls are high.
Let's look at the highest scoring careers on their index. This really fascinated me. The absolute highest score, a 97 out of 100, went to mental health counselors and therapists.
It makes perfect sense when you apply the 4-point framework. Why is it virtually untouched by automation? Because in therapy, the human relationship is the product.
Exactly. Think about a real therapy session. An AI chatbot can easily parse your text inputs and spit out a highly accurate, bulleted list of cognitive behavioral coping mechanisms for generalized anxiety.
Right, can do that in milliseconds.
But an algorithm cannot sit across from you in a quiet room. It cannot notice your pupils dilating when you mention your father. It cannot sense the subtle micro-muscle tension in your jaw. It cannot hold the immense heavy weight of human grief in shared silence. A machine cannot have a shared human experience because it has never experienced mortality, fear, or loss. The empathy cannot be faked or automated.
That is so beautifully put. And that profound human requirement extends to the physical world as well. Look at the skilled trades. Electricians scored a 94 out of 100. Plumbers scored a 91.
The physical world is just too chaotic for robots right now.
Entirely too chaotic.
An AI can write a million lines of Python code perfectly, but it absolutely cannot crawl into a dark, damp, 100-year-old basement, identify why a rat chewed through one specific unmapped copper wire behind a drywall beam, and physically splice it back together while balancing on a ladder.
No way. The robotics and spatial reasoning required to do that are decades away and astronomically expensive to deploy compared to a human.
And then there's healthcare. Nurse practitioners scored a 93 out of 100.
They combine all 4 resistance factors beautifully.
They really do. They require extreme physical dexterity to administer care, deep emotional empathy for bedside manner in terrifying situations, and strict clinical liability. A human has to sign the chart, look the family in the eye, and take legal responsibility for the outcome.
And practically speaking, they earn fantastic livings, often around $129,000 a year, with massive projected job growth.
But here is where the irony of the modern economy really hits hard.
What's that?
We always assume the bosses are safe, right? The leadership, the management, the strategic roles sitting in the corner offices.
Right, the untouchables.
But the career data shows they're actually less protected than the person fixing the elevator outside their office.
It's true, and it's a structural vulnerability. Financial managers scored a 78. HR managers scored a 72.
Why? Because a massive portion of their work is cognitive, data-driven, and crucially, remote.
Remote work.
If your job can be done entirely through a screen from anywhere in the world, over a Zoom call, it is highly vulnerable. Because the brutal truth is, if it can be done from anywhere by a human, it can eventually be done from nowhere by an algorithm.
So what are the practical pivots here? Because it is never too late to change course. If you are listening to this and you realize you are sitting in a highly vulnerable, screen-based administrative role, what are your options right now?
One of the most amazing optimistic things we found in the sources is the massive active recruitment happening in the skilled trades, specifically targeting older adults.
That's awesome.
You do not have to be 18 years old out of high school to start. A 42-year-old who just got laid off from a tech firm can enter a paid apprenticeship, learn the trade, and become a journeyman electrician by 47.
That is a total game changer.
You are earning a great middle-class living from day one, you have decades of bulletproof career runway ahead of you, and you take on zero student debt to do it.
Or You look at localized service businesses, HVAC repair, bespoke landscaping, property maintenance, specialized home contracting.
All highly AI resistant.
Exactly. These businesses run entirely on trust, local reputation, and physical presence. That is the entire business model. An AI server in California cannot fix a broken air conditioner in August in Texas.
It certainly cannot.
It cannot install a custom kitchen cabinet.
Let's just take a moment to let this breathe. Because taking a step back, this represents a massive, overdue cultural shift.
It really does.
For so long, we worshiped the spreadsheet. We valued the screen over the hand. We treated physical labor as a backup plan for people who couldn't hack it in college. Ultimately, what the economy of 2026 is doing is radically revaluing human connection. It's revaluing physical touch, emotional intelligence, and tangible physical reality over data entry.
It is a profound return to the tangible. The tasks that machines find incredibly easy are the ones we spent 4 years and thousands of dollars going to college to learn.
So true.
The tasks that machines find impossibly difficult are the ones inherent to our raw physical humanity.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you listening right now?
It means we are deep inside a historic transition period. And like all historical transitions from the Luddites to the Model T, it requires preparation, it requires sharp adaptability, and it absolutely requires upskilling.
But it does not require panic.
No, it does not require panic.
Yeah.
If you understand the mechanics of corporate compression, if you actively focus on building your AI fluency, or if you strategically pivot toward roles anchored in physical presence and human trust, you can successfully navigate this.
You can thrive in it.
You really can.
We really want to hear from you on this one. It's a huge topic. Go down to the comments right now. What profession do you work in? Do you realistically believe AI could replace your specific career entirely? Or do you align more with Asimoglu, thinking it's just going to change the daily tasks you do?
Let's get a reality check from the ground up for the people actually doing the work.
And a quick housekeeping reminder, if you found this deep dive valuable, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share. We have explicitly linked all the reports we discussed today, the McKinsey data, the BCG reports, Careery, Tenet, and the Reddit threads right down in the description so you can do your own deep dive into the sources and read the raw data for yourself.
Highly recommend checking those out.
Now, we never like to end things with a neat, tidy bow on this show because the macroeconomic reality is anything but tidy. So I want to leave you with one final lingering thought.
You're a good one.
It was dropped by an anonymous user in one of those Reddit threads we were analyzing, and I honestly haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I read it.
Yeah, it stuck with me too.
The user pointed out the glaringly obvious. Massive enterprise companies are in a mad dash, racing to replace millions of workers with AI to cut their labor costs and maximize their quarterly corporate profits.
Right.
But if automation eventually takes the wages away from the working class, who exactly is going to have the money left to buy the products these companies are selling?
It's the ultimate self-consuming economic paradox.
Something to think about the next time a billionaire CEO brags on television about their new AI efficiency. Thank you for joining us at Controlled Dissent. Stay sharp, and we'll see you next time.